By the mid-2000s, Nokia was the global mobile ecosystem. They controlled nearly 40% of the worldwide market, effectively dictating the hardware standards and software trends for an entire generation of users. The common explanation for what happened next is simple. Apple and Google entered the arena in 2007, and Nokia, lacking the vision to compete with the iPhone or Android, was left behind by a more innovative world. This narrative frames the 2007 shift as an external disruption, so sudden and so massive that the existing market leader was simply swept away. But in his book, The Decline and Fall of Nokia, David J. Cord examines the internal mechanics of the company. He finds that Nokia's failure was less about a lack of ideas and more about an organizational structure that prevented those ideas from functioning. To understand the collapse, we have to look at how a monopoly with unrivaled resources builds a bureaucracy so dense that it effectively stops its own progress. Nokia's internal records show they were well aware of the shift toward lifestyle devices. They invested heavily in their Ovi initiative, a platform intended to move the company beyond hardware and into maps, music, and digital services. These innovations rarely reached the market. Entrenched middle management acted as a physical bottleneck, stalling new projects with endless red tape. This bottleneck was fueled by destructive internal competition. Divisions fought over resources, undermining rival projects rather than shipping products. This friction paralyzed decision-making. While competitors were iterating on touchscreen interfaces and app stores in months, Nokia's hardware development cycles were trapped in years of internal political debate. The engineering was sound, but the corporate body had developed a structural defect that actively prevented its own innovations from surviving the journey to the shelf. The paralysis reached the highest levels of strategy, particularly regarding the operating system. By 2010, the obvious path to survival was a shift to Android. Executives at the top hesitated. They were afraid of Samsung's strength within that ecosystem, believing they couldn't compete on hardware alone if they shared the same software as their biggest rival. This indecision triggered a period of boardroom chaos. The search for a new CEO to replace Olli-Pekka Kallasvuo became a secretive, high-stakes battle over the company's identity. The board considered promoting Nokia veteran Anssi Vanjoki, but major American investors, including Morgan Stanley, demanded an outsider. They pressured the board to look beyond the company's traditional Finnish feedership. The board eventually chose Stephen Elop, an executive from Microsoft, to lead the turnaround. Elop's subsequent decision to sell the handset business to his former employer led to a popular theory that he was a Trojan horse, sent to deliberately lower the company's value for a Microsoft acquisition. Quartz research suggests something different. Elop's actions appeared logical to the subordinate executives who agreed with them at the time. The entire corporate culture had become so distorted by its own internal politics that it willingly participated in its own dismantling. The result of this organizational decay was the sale of Nokia's handset division to Microsoft, marking the end of its time as a consumer electronics powerhouse. The company survived in a reduced form, focusing on its networking branch, Nokia Siemens Networks, but its dominance over the mobile device market was gone. Nokia's fall serves as a cautionary case study for today's tech giants. Companies like Google, Meta, or Apple operate at a scale where internal friction can become more dangerous than any external competitor. A competitor building a better product is a challenge, but it is rarely a fatal one for a company with Nokia's initial resources. Monopolies fail when their structures become so political and fearful that they rot from the inside. They lose the ability to fight back, not because they lack a weapon, but because they have forgotten how to use it.